Hello and welcome to World 360. What were the takeaways from Nepal Prime Minister Prachanda's visit to China? How did Canadian Parliament's praise of a Nazi war veteran escalate diplomatically? Why are two NATO allies, Poland and Germany, in a tussle? We answer these and more in today's episode. So first up, Nepal PM's visit to China. While the Asian Games in China may have dominated headlines this week, the diplomatic highlight was Nepal PM Pushpa Kamal Dahal's visit to China. This comes just 3 months after Prachanda's visit to India. Keep in mind that Nepal, like many of India's neighbors, has been developing ties with China and India, both of which appear to be vying for influence in the region. Interestingly, Prachanda visited China at the invitation of Chinese Premier Li Qiang and only held talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping on the margins of the 19th Asian Games. Now, during Prachanda's visit to China, the two countries signed 12 agreements and released a detailed joint statement. Here are some of the major points from that statement. First, Nepal and China said they will accelerate the consultations to finalize text on the BRI implementation plan at an early date. The BRI is one of China's main global infrastructure projects. China signed an MOU with Nepal back in 2017 for bilateral cooperation on BRI, but the text of the implementation document is yet to be brought up. Nepal presented 36 projects to China to be considered in BRI before signing the MOU. Keep in mind that this comes weeks after the India-Middle East-Europe corridor was announced at the G20 summit here in Delhi, which was widely seen as a counter to China's BRI. Second, in the joint statement, the Nepali side reiterated its commitment to the One China principle and recognizing Taiwan as an inalienable part of China's territory. Thirdly, the two sides talked about furthering energy cooperation, which is quite important as Nepal starts gearing up to be an important energy exporter in the region. Already, it is planning to export energy to Bangladesh through power grids in India. So let's look at what the joint statement said about this. Now, the joint statement between Nepal and China talked about the development of hydropower, cross-border transmission lines, and associated substations. There was also a renewed push to finalize the China-Nepal Electric Power Cooperation Plan and enhancing cooperation in wind power, solar power, biomass power, and hydrogen. Some experts say Prachanda's visit to China wasn't as successful. Speaking to Kathmandu Post, a former Nepali ambassador called the 12 agreements signed as mere formalities. This shows how hollow we are and that we have no idea about how to deal with a great power like China, said Mahindra Bahadur Pandey, former Nepali ambassador to China. Meanwhile, Ganesh Adhikari, former chief of the National Intelligence Department in Nepal, told the newspaper that this shows Nepal is having a tough time balancing its geopolitical interests. For our second topic, we're looking at how a moment in the Canadian Parliament has triggered resignations, diplomatic tensions, and has caused much embarrassment for Canada. On Sunday, Canada's Speaker apologized for the Canadian Parliament's honoring of a Ukrainian veteran who turned out to be a Nazi. Yaroslav Hanka, who received a standing ovation from the Canadian Parliament, served in a Nazi combat branch which was instrumental in killing millions of Jews. This moment overshadowed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to Canada, which was supposed to be a show of Ukrainian-Canadian camaraderie. But the situation seems to have spiraled out of control, with Jewish groups expressing shock, Poland calling for the extradition of the Nazi war veteran, and now the Canadian Speaker offering his resignation. Canada's House of Commons Speaker, Anthony Rota, has since stepped down after saying he had made a mistake by inviting the 98-year-old Nazi veteran. This comes after strong protests from both the ruling party and the opposition in Canada. Not to mention that Polish ambassador to Canada took great offense to the incident and asked Rota to issue an apology. The ambassador later met Rota, where the two seemed to have cleared up the confusion. But clearly this wasn't enough, as Rota ended up resigning. Meanwhile, Poland's education minister said he has taken steps to call for the extradition of Yaroslav Hanka since the debacle in the Canadian Parliament. But more importantly, this seemed to play well for Russia, who has continually argued that it invaded Ukraine to wipe out Nazism. Anatoly Antonov, the Russian ambassador to the US, went as far as to say it shows how political elite generally demonstrate inattention when it comes to Nazism in Ukraine. As put by Alexander Nazarayan, a senior White House correspondent for Yahoo News, Zelensky unexpectedly handed the Kremlin a small public relations win. For our last topic, we're looking at two NATO allies that are engaged in a tussle. This has emerged over allegations of foreign interference, which seems to be quite the hot topic these days. On Monday, Poland's foreign minister accused Germany of seeking to interfere in his country's internal affairs. This came after German Chancellor Olaf Scholz commented on a visa fraud scandal that hit Poland just weeks before its election. Earlier this month, the Polish opposition claimed that Polish consulates in Africa and Asia sold fast-tracked temporary work visas for thousands of dollars to migrants. The scandal led to the arrest of 7 people and the dismissal of the deputy foreign minister. However, the ruling government in Poland has written to the European Union's Security Commissioner alleging that this scandal is an exaggerated media fact timed to discredit the ruling party as it heads for elections. The German Chancellor had at the time said Poland had to answer for this scandal, which then elicited a sharp response from Warsaw. Poland's foreign minister said Scholz's statement is an attempt to interfere in Polish internal affairs and the ongoing electoral campaign in Poland. Now, migration has been a burning issue in Poland in recent years. You may remember that in November 2021, there was a major border crisis between Poland and Belarus, which caused the closure of the border and left thousands of migrants who tried to cross it stranded. At the time, the European Union had accused Belarus of orchestrating a humanitarian crisis. Thank you so much for watching. This is Pia Krishnankutty for ThePrint.